So you see that effect back there that looks like a window? Well, I'm sure you know it's not a window, but that's what I'm talking about today, is how to get that effect using the Godox Projection Unit Kit. Well, at least that's what I'm calling it. That's actually not the official name. And just to be transparent with you, these were sent to me from Godox and Gear. However, they do not get to tell me what to include or say in this video. They're seeing this at the same time as you are, and no money changed hands. Everything's my own opinion here. So hopefully you enjoy this video, as I've had these products for a few months now. So just to be clear on what the projection unit does, it creates a theatrical effect using an LED light. So you could use the Godox SL-60W, any of the VL series from Godox, or in this case, I'm using a Godox SA-17 right now, and that's what you're seeing on the wall. The way the effect is achieved is using 5 different products from Godox all put together that make this possible to use with Bowens mount lights. So that's what I'm talking about today, is how to use this on Bowens mount lights. So the way to set up the projection unit is to take the first piece, which is the Bowens mount adapter, and stick that onto your Bowens mount light. Then you'll take the next piece, which is a projection attachment, stick that onto the Bowens mount adapter. And then, usually the projection attachment will come with this already. You'll be using a projection lens. They come in 3 different sizes, 60mm, 85mm, and 150mm. I have 60 and 85. You stick one of those in, and that's what you'll be using to focus the light, to make it sharp or blurry. And then the way to get creative with the light is to use gobos. So in order to do that, you'll need to buy gobos, and then you'll need a gobo holder. Usually these are sold together, but they are 2 separate items that make up part of the projection unit. Thus, those are the 5 things that you're going to need. We'll dive more into each one of them in just a second, but just so you know, it gets really difficult trying to buy these all separately. So I do recommend, if you want to, you can buy them as a kit. So I'm gonna link them down in the description individually, so that if you need one piece, you can find it. And then I'll list some kits in there that I think are helpful, because some come with everything, some come with a few, some even come with lights. So if you don't have the light that you're looking to use with this kit, you can also find that. So I'm just making your life easier, because I do know it gets a little tricky because they don't have very self-explanatory names and they're really built off numbers. It gets really confusing. So easy, linked down in the description, make your life easier for you. Now, I do want to take a second to educate you on these lights so that you know that this is not the only way to get this effect. This effect I'm getting because I want to use it on a Bowens mount light. A lot of video lights are Bowens mount, and it just makes my life easier because it's the type of lights I have laying around. Godox made this possible because they made the Bowens mount adapter recently. Thus, that's why I'm talking about it and able to use it, is because before you had to use the projection attachment, which makes all of this possible, on their S30 light. Godox's S30 light was the way that you used to get this effect. And it was great, but you'd have to buy that light specifically, and that light was the only light that really worked with the effect. So it kind of, I don't know, made it so that you were just stuck with one light. What if you wanted brighter? What if you wanted bicolor, right? You want options. So Godox made the Bowens mount adapter so that you could use it in different ways. However, more education here, this effect is not new because of the projection unit, which has been around for a few years. Long before that, the old and tried and true way of getting these type of effects, which are still beneficial, they're not gone because of the projection unit, is what I believe is called cookie cutters. That is the method that's been used by Hollywood and forever anywhere to get this type of effect. It's a really large version of this. You take a light, and then you take these giant sheets of metal that have these cutouts of, say it's a window, that you stick a certain distance away from the light, have it shine through onto whatever you're projecting it onto. It's an older form, but it's still good because sometimes you'll need the effect to be larger or be used in those situations. Maybe it's safer depending on the type of light that you're using. So that's the quick education piece. I want you to know you can do the Bowens mount route, you can do the old projection attachment version with that light, there's nothing wrong with it, and then you could also do cookie cutters, which Armando talks about on his channel. I'll link his video here so that you can find that, because it just might be a fun piece to understand better. Now, once you have the projection unit all set up onto whichever light you're using it on, you're ready to start using it. Once you flip the switch, there's nothing more you have to do besides focus the lens. Now, this is where I'm going to talk about the lenses. There's the 60, 85, and 150. The 60 millimeter is like a regular lens. It's a wider angle lens because it's a smaller number. And so you'll get more widespread light. Now, what happens when you have widespread light in this case is that it's not as bright. If you focus that light down using like the 150 millimeter, you'll get a very bright round spotlight effect. It's going to be really bright because the lenses inside the projection attachment and the lens are focusing the light to make it brighter. It's like using a magnifying glass, but on a very completely different level. You'll have more control over it. You can put the lens in and out of focus, right? So that the light gets fuzzy around the edges, or if you have the gobo inside, it's a little out of focus, which is currently what I've got going on in the background right now. It's a little out of focus. I don't want it to look absolutely sharp and in focus because I want the effect of distance. So that's really nice that you can use the lenses to affect the distance and also affect the brightness of the light. So what you're seeing right now is an 85 millimeter. I have used 60 millimeter and it makes the effect a lot bigger, but also less bright. So you'll have to brighten the light even more if you choose to use a wider lens. Now, typically, when you buy the projection attachment, it comes with 85, like I said. So if you want the 60 mil, you'll have to purchase that separately, or if you want the 150, you'll have to purchase that separately. So don't worry, I'll link those all down below easily for you. Now, I do have to warn you that even though Godox has built these to be as cool as possible, there is one very specific portion of the projection unit that gets extremely hot. And you do have to be careful because you could scald your hands. I definitely recommend having gloves on that are meant to be working around lights. If you buy some of the kits down below, I've linked, they do come with some of them. So if you don't have gloves, I do recommend finding gloves or buying gloves that work with lights because you don't want to burn your hands. I tested it. There is this one section on the projection attachment that gets extremely hot compared to the rest of the light. So be sure to be extra careful around that section. Don't have this light where people could accidentally burn themselves, or maybe a small child will touch it because it will hurt and possibly leave a mark. Now the gobos, you can buy different kits from Godox, or maybe you'll find a kit that has all of them. I have the one that seemed to have effects that I would probably use, which were a lot of windows or just more like vent shapes. And the reason why I wanted that is because I'm gonna go more the practical route and use them, but there are some really artistic ones that you could get really, fun and creative patterns and stuff. You don't have to just shine them on the wall. I imagine you can use them to shine onto subjects and things like that, get some shadows and shapes on people's faces. You really can get creative with this effect, and those gobos are really the way to do that. Otherwise, if you don't have the gobos, you basically just have a spotlight, which honestly, that can be really helpful too. Maybe you need to mimic a spotlight effect for a film, a commercial, maybe you're faking a stage play or something like that. This would be really helpful for that. But creative elements such as the window effect, that's where the gobos are really going to shine. So there are different kits. I'll link a few down below. I know I keep talking about the links, but it's just, there's so many little pieces to this. So I'll try to be as clear as possible. There are multiple different kinds. You could just buy a bunch of them, try them all out. I just happen to have the ones that look like windows. To be honest, there is not a lot to talk about the projection unit because it's a very plain and simple piece. But my most favorite part of this is that it really cuts down on time, money, and space. Now the reason for that is that if you were to go the cookie cutter route, which I talked about, those were the large effects, the way that you would do that is to use a light on a light stand, and then another stand that holds the cookie cutter, and then more stands that have flags on them to make sure the light doesn't spill everywhere. And suddenly you have 5 or 6 stands with different elements clamped on and attached to them to get one effect. This effect that I'm achieving right now is using one light, the projection unit kit, and one light stand. It takes up the space of one light, that's it. All right, so there is one major con with the projection unit. I'm gonna share it with you so you can figure out if this is actually going to work with your lights. It does work on all Godox lights, all right? I've tried it with all of them that I own, and they work perfectly fine, as long as they're Bowens mount, obviously. But it does not work on every single Bowens mount light, and here's why. I was just trying it out here on the Nanlite Forza 200, for instance, and it doesn't fit all the way in to be able to click into place. Reason for that is there's a ring here, 4 centimeters in, that meets resistance to this piece right here, because this is where the LED is housed, sticks out a lot further than on a Godox light. So that means if you have a light that isn't Godox, you need to measure to figure out if it's going to actually fit onto it and click into place. This one can't even click into place. So 4 centimeters in, that's when you meet resistance. So you need to be under 4 centimeters in order for this piece, this whole thing, to work on a Bowens mount light. So this one, for instance, the measurement from the back to the front of this is a little over 4 centimeters. That's why it doesn't even fit. Whereas on the Godox SA-60W, for instance, measure this one, it's under or right around 3 centimeters. So this fits perfectly fine on it. So you do need to be aware of that, measure them out, figure out if it's under 4 centimeters. If it is, then likely it will fit as long as it's a Bowens mount light. Now, one question that I haven't answered that you might be wondering is, how did I make this all colored on the wall? Because typically the light is just whatever color the light is. And in this case, if it's just a daylight balanced light, then it's going to be a white light blasting onto the wall. Well, I have an RGB light. That's the Godox SA-150R. That is Bowens mount. It's a new light. I'll be talking about it soon, so stay tuned for that. But this light is actually colored, so it can shine it onto the wall colored. However, before that, I was using a Godox SA-60W. That's a daylight balanced light. And so when I wanted that to be colored, I took these little gels that Godox also makes, and I took some gaffer tape, and over the front of the lens, I taped it just barely with enough room to breathe and everything. That's where I taped it on there. Now, don't put it into where the gobo is. I did try that just to see what it would do, but it quickly burns the gel out and you risk it melting or burning, so do not do that. Put it on the front of the lens so that it's away from all the heat and that it still gives you the colored effect that you want. And I did test this on both the SA-60W and my brightest light, which is the VL300, 300 watt light. I put the gel over the front of the lens. It didn't burn it, it didn't melt it. So that is how you can get a colored light, which is even more creative, more, I don't know, interest and depth if you want, with whatever light that you have, whether it's colored or not. So if you're interested in doing that and you're not gonna go buy an RGB Bowens mount light, then you'll probably want those gels. So I will link those down below because they are really creative and there's a bunch of them. Otherwise, I think I covered everything. So if I didn't, comment them down below. I will answer all your questions. Hope you enjoyed the video. And with that, I will see you guys in the next one.